a little bit of feedback even now on what those topics are meant to do. You will notice with them that we've split them up usually into two different questions, and the basis of that is so that we can have people from different parts of the industry looking at the same topic and being able to write to it based on what suits them a little bit better. So some of them are a little bit retailer centric, some of them are generalized, some of them are more perhaps supplier centric in the way that they're put together. So what side of the industry are you, Michael?
I'm supplier, so with
Supplier
Stuart
side, yeah.
Alexander.
Okay. Yeah. So we can look at it and take it from that point of view. So the whole idea of the process with these topics is so that you can get into a topic that or an option on topics where you can either be writing on something that is directly related to the style of work that you do or the part of the industry you work in, or you can take the challenge to go and try something that's outside, in the cliched sense, outside your wheelhouse. So you've got options in how you do that. Now, my recommendation would always be to you to try and stick to something that's closer to the sort of work that you're used to, because it gives you that opportunity to be able to get into speed or up to speed quite quickly. Whereas if you're going outside, you've got a lot of research work to do to make sure that you're getting into the topic itself. The idea of the 2,000 word limit is double-sided. On one side of it is we want you to be able to write a punchy, down-to-earth, right on topic style approach to an essay. Secondly, it takes a lot of hours to put together a decent essay, even at 2,000 words. So, we want to keep that in mind. The other side of it is, of course, that we've got to send it out to a range of executives across the industry who'll be reading the
I
essay.
have to say that, Maya.
She's dreaming of my pillow willows.
Okay. A little bit young, I think, but we'll give it a go. So those people have got who will get each of those people will get perhaps 5 essays. So they've got to have the time themselves also to read an essay. And if they were 3,000 and 4,000 word essays, they'd get pretty tired by the time they got halfway through 5 essays, I would think. There are currently on our list about 85 execs across the industry who are prepared to take essays. So we've got a very, very strong range of people who are interested to know what it is that you all individually are going to be able to provide to us, this year. So over to you at the moment. Are there any questions that anybody would like to throw at me just to get this started?
I have a question. So I'm pretty new to the Australian FMCG industry. I have been for a while with the Indian side of the FMCG industry. Um, I am I good to talk?
Sorry.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm quite new to the Australian side of FMCG industry, and I've had like around 8 years in India before I moved here with Colgate and Kellogg. So I'm just trying to understand this whole Joe Berry, and I wanted to give this a try this year. So what I wanted to understand a bit more is when we're writing this essay, are you looking for us to come up with some sort of our recommendation or solution, or just a point of view? What is it that I should be aiming towards? Because I've gone through the essays, and like the others, I'm literally just struggling to put my finger on what I want to do, because I'm just trying to also see what the scope of work is going to be like, what the expectation and the outcome is going to be like. So is it going to be more about the point of view, our thoughts on how we should approach it, or are you going to be looking for some sort of solution in the answers that in the essays that we write?
There's a couple of things in there. Firstly, we want you to, once you pick the topic, we want you to look at that topic and find something within that topic that you're able to write about that is at the leading edge of that particular topic. So we don't want you to necessarily go back and write about what has happened. We want you to write about what is actioning now and what you see as actioning in the future, so that you are looking forward rather than backwards in the process. We would then say to you, pick the mainstream of any topic that you pick. Don't try and load up all sorts of different things into your presentation.
Mhm.
Pick the topic that's most important in the way you're looking at it. Research it on that basis. Once you've got your research and the backbone of your essay put together, then bring in your opinion. What do
Got
you
it.
think? Right? So I've written this. This is what the research tells me will happen in the future. This is what I think will happen. So that we're getting a combination of a fairly narrow look at a topic, we're getting good research on the topic, and we're getting opinion. Because in the end, the essays that get the best results, best scores, are always those that have some level of opinion
Yeah,
in.
100%. Understood.
The other thing to do is also reach, again, as I said to some before, reach out to me, because I'm happy to work through
I
with.
would definitely be seeking your input on this, because I'm
Yeah,
leaning towards my my own topic rather than the topics that have been set. So I would definitely want to take your input before I go ahead and finish it.
yeah. As soon as you pick, I mean, even if you haven't picked, we can talk about it. But as soon as you've
Yeah,
picked the topic that interests you, then come back to me and we'll look at it,
100%.
and I'll
100%.
give you the guidelines. Now that's available to everybody. There could be 100 of you writing essays. I'm happy to take those 100, and I'm happy to do it 7 days.
That's gracious of you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so don't panic. All of you, more than happy to help. This is my 19th year in doing this Joe Berry proposition, so I kind of got nearly good at it. So I'm here. Yell, jump up, put your hand up, whatever it is, let me know. Okay, other questions?
I guess from one thing that I've been thinking through about is how we connect with, say other suppliers or other, from my perspective, other people in the industry. Is that something you would be able to help facilitate, of getting
Absolutely.
some further
Absolutely.
opinions?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Hmm.
And you will find, and if you listen to any of the broadcasts, the podcasts and different things that are out there on people who have either been finalists or essay writers previously, they will tell you that every time they've reached out to somebody that don't necessarily know that well, the door's always been open. People have been more than happy to help them to find their way through a topic or to get other information. Shruti, I think you've written before. Did you have a reach out proposition?
No, I intended to enter the competition, but I never ended up actually writing anything. So,
Yeah. Shruti, what was your take on reaching out to others?
So, like, to me, it was really helpful to understand others' perspective, and reaching out to previous winners helped me understand how to write an essay and not to get complicated and overthink or stay in the right direction, rather than trying to read through various articles across the world, rather than just stick to the topic, narrow it down, and just stay focused on the topic.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we've got those 85 people I said who are prepared to take essays, but we've got all of the past winners who are more than happy to they're alumni, as they're called. They'll take calls, they'll take emails, they'll sort out onlines with you, whatever it is that you need, because most of them are very, very engaged within the Joe Berry process. Let me just take you down, if some of you are considering that the free choice topic. The idea of the free choice topic is to enable everybody to have a go. If in this case, normally it's only 4 this year, 5 topic selections that you have. If there's nothing in there that kind of grabs you, then you have that opportunity to pick a topic of your own. And the only thing we ask you to do there is not to write about something that's already within the other topics that is a little bit outside that area. So I've had one person this week that wanted to talk about the culture of management within the retail industry, and I thought, well, that's an interesting proposition. How are you going to tie that back in will be something that I'll talk about with that person, but there's an idea of the sorts of things you can go to. The other thing is, you'll notice on all the topics this year, we've not added AI in anywhere. And the reason for that is that pretty much is in everything. So somewhere along the line, you're going to find with your research that AI is probably going to crop up. So it's up to you to do that. Now, interestingly, last year we had 15 essays come in on the AI set topic. None of those essays made the final because we felt, we don't know for sure, that none of the judges of the essays quite knew what they were reading and how to give it good or bad marks. And in some cases, the people who were writing them didn't quite know what they were writing about. So it's a bit of an invasive proposition these days, but almost all of you, I think at some stage or other, are going to find yourselves referring to AI in some fashion. Hopefully not having it write your essay for you, but we'll see how that works out. Other questions?
I have two questions. First of all, so Q4 section, I'm interested in writing about waste reduction and sustainability. The Q4B is about reduction in waste, where it's mainly focused on automation and the impact of automation in that area. So if I want to write generally about waste reduction, is it going to be in the first section, or is it going to be under the umbrella of this section? That was the first question.
It depends whether you want to, if you're going to write about waste reduction where it's not related to automation, then we can have a look at that with you. But the idea of that proposition is that there are trends happening now where the measurements of the amount of waste food, for example, but it gets into clothing and other areas as well, is quite significant. And the logic is that, and again, AI probably to some extent, using new technologies, that level of waste will be reduced by reading the trends, adjusting the automation to the point where you're producing products that are more attuned to the level of usage or consumption, rather than necessarily allowing it just to continue on and trying to fix the waste problem at the other end. So we're saying bring waste to the front, and what can we do up front to fix it rather than waiting till the other end. But Hardy, we can have a look at that with you.
Thank you. And the second question is, we have access to the topics that alumni wrote in the past 3 years. Is there any repository that we can access for the previous years, the years before 2021?
Sorry, the essays of previous years, did you say?
Yeah, so is there any resource that we can see the essays other than the past 3 years? Plus, it's just the winners. So can we see the people who didn't make it to the podium, or is it
Look, the answer is yes. I mean, any essay that's been written over the years is on record here, and we can pull them out and provide them to you. But we would need to know what you're looking for in essays you're looking at. Otherwise, you've got, you're going to be talking about hundreds of essays and
yeah. So
what specific?
My perspective is that first I want to know what topics made it to the podium. So there are a lot of topics people came up with ideas, but they didn't make it through the judges. Plus, I want to see if there are areas that people worked on before, and I can just get ideas and more clarity.
Okay. All of the most recent essays are available on the Jo Berry website. We've had a little bit of a hiccup with that, but Tyler's fixed that for us so that you can go on the website and pick out a lot of the recent essays, either by the individual or by the groups of essays. But if you've got something specific or you want to know a bit more information, come back to me on that. And that's part of the process. The thing is with these, with the Joe Berry, we don't just want, you know, a stack of essays. We want the essays to be the best possible essays that you can put together. So any help that we can get organised, give you whatever you want, we will try and do, and we'll do it quickly. It's not a case of you send a request in and a week later you're still wondering whether or not it's going to happen. As the best I possibly can within an hour, I'll have that response back to you, so that we're keeping you moving. You know what's coming up.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna thank you. I'm gonna reach out to you soon. I'm gonna drop off after this. I have another meeting, so thank you.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thank you.
Bye.
The idea of the essay is to, as I said before, is to not to get too broad. The basic proposition that I normally throw out is to say, I picked a topic. What are the 4 or 5 things that I think are the most important part of this particular essay? And then list them down. If you put down 4 headings and then you write 3 or 4 subheadings under each of those, you've got 2,000 words in a flash. So it doesn't take long, as long as you stick to that sort of central proposition that this is what I'm talking about. So if you're talking about retail media, for example, then you find that main line that you want to push on retail media. Is this a supplier issue in retail media? Am I looking at it from a retailer's point of view, retail media? Am I looking at it, what it'll do to the trends in the industry in retail media? So you just pick those areas. What you do is, as you put your essay together, you can throw in one-liners or short paragraphs here and there that show the reader that you know that there are a whole lot of other things that go on in this area. So that's them knowing that you've researched this, you know what you're talking about, but stick to that main line so that you can get your 2,000 words, you can get punch, and you can get your opinion into that particular essay. There was something else I was going to add. It's gone in and out of my head while I was talking, which is too much. Other questions?
One from me, so apologies if I missed it in the first few minutes before I joined. Across 2,000 words, give or take, 3 pages, 8 font. If you're doing approximately 3 to 4 high-hitting points per page, it's about 10 to 12 points. Is that approximately a good way of spacing out and structuring the essay?
Look, it's probably a little bit too generalized to say that, because you can have particular points that can take up 500 words, because this is really solid, interesting stuff, particularly if you're putting opinion into it as well. I think in terms of getting your structure together, yes, I would be looking at that, because you're talking probably around about seven pages, 7 A4 pages as your essay. Now, remembering the tricks in this sort of stuff with your words. First of all, at the bottom of your word screen, you've got the word count. If you right click that, you'll come up and it'll have a little box come up. If you untick that box, it means that all of your references don't get included in your word count. So that's the trick number 1. The other thing then is to look at the fact that you need to have an executive summary, and you need to have a conclusion. So make sure that you've given them the right amount of space. We get essays where the executive summary doesn't really give a great introduction to what it is that's going to do. It doesn't have that punch that says, when you read this essay, this is what you're going to learn. Listen carefully, read carefully, this is what you're going to learn. And then the conclusion at the end, where sometimes we get one-liners. Now, a one-liner can be good if it really, really is punchy. But most of the time, everybody goes, well, what happened? The essay was good till I got to here. Now I don't know what you're talking about. So you've got to make sure that you've got that very, very solid conclusion in place, so that you're making sure that you're giving the reader a reason to give you a good mark.
Hey, sorry, just a question I wanted to clarify there. You mentioned having references in your essay, but those references aren't counted towards your word count. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, if you use the word thing that at the top of the screen, you've got the tab, the AB1 or whatever it is, that little symbol, use that to put your references in, which puts the 1, 2, 3, 4, 14, 15s next to the words in your essay. That will then show the references at the bottom of the page. You untick that box, as I mentioned, and they don't count. Similarly, if you're putting in graphics or charts, if you include the description of the graph in the graph, it doesn't count. If you put it in a box underneath under the graph, it does count. So you got to be careful of those sort of things. Now, on that basis, I'm tough but fair on those things. We get a lot of people over the years who want to argue that, oh, they didn't have enough space and they should be allowed to have this, that, and the other. And generally I'll say, no, it's 2,000 words and send it back. But what we do is if it comes in, and let me tell you, I will get 50% of all the essays will arrive at 1 minute to midnight on February the 28th. Not surprising. We're not black and white in that sense. I'll go through the essays when they come in. If I find errors or issues with them, I'll send them back and say, hey, you got 2 or 3 days, fix it up, send it back to me. The big thing is make sure that when you've got your essay, get it in. It can be fixed up later. It's a case of we want your best essay in. It's not a case of, oh, I'll get rid of them or get rid of that. It's important that you have that opportunity. And if you're sending me drafts, I'll go through them all. I'm a bit of a pedantic on grammar, so I'm happy to go through and change all your S's to Z's, just because I love organisation. But we do that sort of stuff because part of this process in the J Berry is it's based on leadership amongst other things. And the better you can write, the more grammatic you are in the way you present, the better you're going to be in the long term as a communicator. So if we can help you in any way, do that. And of course, at the same time, we're helping you in the sense of the people who are going to read your essay, getting a better communication as well. So we won't be changing your essay, but we'll be saying to you, okay, this can sound better. If you're sending me drafts, a lot of what I will do is I'll take a sentence and say to you, that sentence is back to front. I'm going to take the end of your sentence and put it at the beginning and put at the end, and then it makes better sense. So we do all that sort of stuff to help. So, and that's free. You just ask, send it in. That's what happens. And once again, it's as quick as we can get it back to you. It's not waiting days for that to happen. I actually find it to be a bit of fun, to be honest. It's quite enjoyable.
Is there a particular format we need to do the references in? Looking at the FAQs is a little bit more vague. Is it something like a Harvard style or footnoting?
Yeah, people keep asking me that, and I say I've got no idea what you're talking about. If you click that tab at the top of your Word document, it puts it in for you, and it puts it at the bottom of the page. And I go, beauty, we're all happy. So it's simple to do that. You can do it other ways, but you got to remember that if you do a list of references on the last page of your document, perhaps in the old university style, it will count in your words, and that buggers you up. So you're better off following that word process and making sure they don't come up. I'll double check them to make sure as well. In that sense, again, if you're over the number, if your essay comes in and it's over the number, we'll send it back and say you got to fix it. I mean, I might have a blind eye towards 5 or 6 words over, but generally we try and keep to that 2,000 proposition. Other questions?
I actually had a question on the brand topics.
Yeah.
Particularly Q3A, talking about like how a brand endures through like trends, etc.
Yeah.
It asks for a case study. So I was wondering if you're essentially looking at like the lifespan of one brand as that case study, or can you use multiple case studies of different brands to support what you're talking about?
There's no problem in you using multiples, except remember that the more examples you use, the more case studies, the more words you're taking
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
in that situation. But the idea is that you should only need to pick one case study to sell your story. You can then reference other case studies just briefly in there so that the reader knows that there are others that you are aware of, but this is the one that gives you the picture. Now, again, in that assistance, this topic was brought to us by a guy who works in the branding arena. So if you're going to go down that path, we can put you in contact with him and he can talk to you about how that
That'd be
happens
good.
and what you can use. And if you're running short on case studies, we'll find somebody who can give you a case study. So whatever we can do here, that's fine.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's one of those interesting topics that the idea that that brands are losing their abilities in many areas. If you look at organisations, perhaps the biscuit organisation, the biscuit aisle used to be half, if not more, of a whole aisle in the supermarket, and now it's about 2 bays. And you look at why is that happening? What's happening is that cannibalisation of the brand, the leading brands, because of other marketing, is that their own issue where they've dropped back from being a big range to a core range. I mean, what are the things that are trending and creating these particular situations? But secondly, some of them are also trying to bring out new brands or new products within brands at the same time, running into that cannibalisation of their own product range because they've not thought through the process that they're going into. So you can get some really interesting conversations going on that sort of topic. But you can have opinion too. You can look at a major brand and say, in my research, this is what I'm finding, and I think this brand has made a big mistake. They should have gone this way. So you can have that sort of opinion. The essay readers love it because that's you giving them a little bit of the future. The other basics in the rules are things like the 12-point and 12-point RL and so on, so that we want to keep everything fairly even, so that when we look at an essay, we can see that the essay complies a lot more easily than we can if it's different fonts and layouts and all those sort of things. But it doesn't mean you can't personalize it a little bit. The other thing to understand is how that process works. So when the essays hit my desk by 28th of February, I go through them all. I go through all of them as they come in, but certainly at that time, double check them to make sure they comply. As I said before, if they don't comply, they go back and we just give you the clues on how to fix it or what to do in a few days to get that right. I'm having another one of those old people moments. The process then is that the essay, all of your details are stripped off the essay. So you'll have a front page that's got all your details. And in those details, we need that information so that, because a lot of people change jobs, and just because the fact you've changed jobs doesn't mean we discount you out of the system. You're still the person who wrote the essay. So then as that essay goes out, all it has is the number and your entry number and the title. So there's no indication of where you work, how old you are, any gender issues or anything like that. It's just an essay that goes out in a blind sense. Those essays go then to usually 5 or more judges, but a minimum of 5 judges, and each judge will get 5 essays, all on the same topic wherever we possibly can. And of those judges, you will have a retailer, a supplier, a service provider, an industry analyst, a past winner, and so on, so that you're not getting all of the retailers reading your essays or so on. It's the industry looking at your essay, and therefore the scores that come back in are a good indication of how the whole industry sees your work. In that process, the other end of that process is when those scores all come back in, which will be around about the end of April. There is no issue on how many we get from any particular place. So we don't go, well, we had 5 or 6 different topics. So therefore, we pick one from each. That's not how it's done. Nor do we look at the employment of where these people are. If you are one of the 6 best essays by score, then you'll be given an invitation to attend the finals of the Joe Berry Award. But in the process, before we get to that, we also, every week, I send to certainly the major organisations and some of our long-term supporting companies a list of the people from those organisations who have registered. So your company should know that you've registered for the Joe Berry Award. You should be looking to get internal support from them. And if you're not, go and kick down some doors and say, come on, give me a hand here. We find that generally most people will give you a lot of help. More questions?
Keith, what's the most common mistakes that you see people make when picking topics and when picking topics or other key parts of the application?
The biggest mistake is trying to oversell the proposition, trying to put too much information into an essay. And then the second one is flow of the message. You get the essays that have got a lot of good content, and you can tell by looking at the research that they've done that there's some good work done in that area, but it's all over the place. And you kind of try and read it, and you get into an interesting point and it stops, and then 2 pages later it turns up again. You go, yeah, okay, I've lost the plot. I don't know where you're at. So it's that proposition of once you've picked what you're doing, make sure that it flows through the essay. And it makes it so much easier for 2 things. One is when you go back and check it yourself, it looks a lot better to you, and it certainly works better for the people who are going to read the essay. So don't wander around all over the place. Stick to your topic. Get your communication line really, really solid.
Awesome, thank you.
We do get a lot of people who've come from the lady that was on before. Saying that she's not long been here from India and so on. So we give a lot of help wherever we can too in that situation, so that you don't look at it. We don't have to look at it from the point of view of saying, well, I'm not real good on English and so on. We can work through those sort of things. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get you into the top in the essay. That's up to the content of your essay. But we can make sure that in the language sense that you're given the best opportunity. With the essays, it isn't taking it a bit further down the line, should you be lucky enough to go into the finals. It isn't always the best essay that wins the award. The process is that once those people are selected, they're given 4 weeks and a lot of help to get themselves ready for the presentation to the judges. And what they get then is 20 minutes of them presenting uninterrupted based on their essay. 20 minutes of Q&A on the research and their points made during that essay, and then half a dozen questions at random, which can throw people out quite significantly, but it's done on purpose to see how good you are at thinking on your feet. So one of those things, going back to Ash's comment before, one of those things you can do is when you're writing your essay, you can actually think about, not have to do it, but just mentally put in place, how would this look in terms of a presentation? And you can kind of set it up early on, purely in the way that you construct your essay as to how that can look. So as I said, don't spend a lot of time on it, but it is something to think about in process. The other thing you do, as I've said, is send in your drafts. Doesn't matter whether it's 1 page or it's 1,500 words. Send it in, and let's get started. Get you working on this, because it's important that you learn from this. I know what I was going to say before. Just remember, we get. The reason I've got 85 people who will take essays, and we'll have 30 people 30 executives sitting in the judging room in June next year, around about 30. And I could put 45, 50 people in that room. There are so many people who would love to be there. And the reason they want to be there is from an executive point of view, they will get a whole day of education on current topics, research work that you've all done, that gives them an education that they don't have time to necessarily go and look for themselves. So the reason for making sure that you let people internally know what you're doing and what you're working on is because then you can get assistance from the organisation in terms of what they're looking for. What are their strategies at the moment? What are the issues they're facing? What sort of things are they asking people to look at within the business? And you could be feeding into that situation. It does a couple of things. It gives you exposure. It shows your leaders that you're very, very keen to give yourself some level of promotion. It gives you doorways into getting people within the organisation to let you know what it is they're bothered about, what are the things that are bothering them, which you can then incorporate in your essay. And the final thing in that is that nobody in your organisation will get your essay to mark. We make sure that your essays only go to people outside your place of employment. So there's an extra double blind process going on there as well. You can get as much help as you like internally because nobody's going to be judging your essay. Nobody from there is going to be judging your essay. So make use of it. Use it. Get that exposure. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know that you're trying to put your career forward. One of the things we find for a lot of people is that the JBerry gives them a career boost whether they make the finals or not, as long as they've been clear of what they're doing and they've let people know in the industry. And if you talk to people, winners, like if you get a chance to talking to Lena or Carolina Macquarie, who won it 2 years ago, she tried twice. The first year she didn't do any good. And she said she didn't talk to anybody. She just did it quietly all by herself. The second year when she went out and started to talk to people, she realised what a big difference that made in her ability to put that essay together. But it also gave her that exposure. So the question was before about what can we do? Once we know what it is you're writing on, we can then direct you to people outside your organisation who will talk to you and give you assistance as well. Now, we'll try and make sure that they're not ones that are going to necessarily read your essay. Can't guarantee that, but that probably doesn't matter too much because they'll be giving you bits of information rather than looking at the thing in total as a total view. It's not a big problem. But I mean, the exposure proposition is significant. Don't waste it. Don't waste it. Make sure that anybody who's got value knows what you're doing. More questions?
Yeah, I just had one, just rewinding a bit. When you're talking about what we have to include with the executive summary, and the conclusion and all of that, is the executive summary counted towards the word count as well, or is that?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay.
If your front page doesn't count, and if you're putting you should put an index in or whatever. People different names for that, but an index that doesn't count. I'll discount that as well. But once you start writing, once your executive summary and you're into introduction and so on, you're inside your word count.
Cool. Thank you.
But make sure it's got beef, that it's working. I mean, this is that situation. It depends on how you think. I mean, a lot of people say in this essay you will find, which is kind of okay. It's not what I would do, but that's okay. But you're going to be saying, in this essay, we've looked at the trends that affect brands and the ability for brands to maintain their position within a retail market. One of the big problems that brands have is created by their own proposition, and that is that they don't necessarily measure the effect that a new product will have on their brand within the market, whether it's a brand made by them or a brand made by somebody else. This is an issue that they must look at. This is an issue that many of them don't get right. Investors say we will look at how they should be looking at these particular issues, right? So then you've got this gotcha, right? You've
Signposted it.
pointed the finger at them, said you're not doing it right, you can do it better. Here's how you're going to do it better. Now let's get on with it. Come read this.
Cool.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
I just made that up.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Others? Anything in the rules that's bothering you? Any questions you have on topics?
Keith, just one from me on question 1A, retail format changes.
Yep.
The example provided has a lens that focuses more heavily on operational wage costs, and to get that right, is the question more general in nature when it asks what is the store format of the future for retail and what are the benefits of the format change? For example, if I focus on the format change itself, the various elements that come into that, and why such a decision would be made based on consumer trends and industry trends, would that satisfy the intent of that question too?
Yes, it would, but what you need to do, Dean, is you need to add in your suggestions on what the future will look like. Based on the trends that we're following at the moment, we're seeing a combination of large format stores, not huge format, but larger format stores, but a significant trend into the local, metro, whatever the other variations are in the supermarket sizes because of the condensing of the population area. So some of this format thing is driven by the location propositions where you just can't get big stores, so let's put a small one in. Some of it's building on the trends where people who live in high-rise areas don't buy as many grocery types or types of grocery from a range, for example, as others may do. The influence also comes in from things like the deliver to your door menu recipe boxes and so on. So you've got all these combinations coming in. So you can look at that and say, yeah, this is the logical, this is the basis, this is why inside a retailer they're thinking this way. But also then put your thing on the end of it that says that you see this trend of going in a different direction within the next 5 years based on this. So that you're giving that little extra that says there's more to come.
And in that example, you focused a lot when we say format on the general form factor of the store. What I guess the lens I'm coming out with this as well is the space within the store, given the same four walls and roof. A lot of time and science goes into how much space we allocate to range to satisfy the needs of the customer. Is that thinking too narrowly? Do I need to consider, I guess, from a construction standpoint, how we right-size things as well to be effective with that question?
No, you could go either way. I mean, that's where the flexibility lies. You can talk about this format purely from a range perspective, or you can talk about it from square meter perspective and population density and so on. So that's up to you how you do that. The thing is that, and that's part of that thing where I was talking before about keeping the thing narrow. If you're going to go down the range side, then you'll mention location and square footage at some point, but that's all you do. You mention it. Then you get on talking about range and why you would do it in this particular way. I mean, you can look at that in things like fashion where you've got Mosaic, the brands all starting to disappear, and the proposition there is that they may come back on the basis that they'll put 2 or 3 brands into one location. So their format is changing based on the range, trying to keep a range alive, rather than trying to make bigger stores and get bigger ranges and so on. So that's a little bit rubbery, but there's those sort of logic. It doesn't only apply to the food environments. It's happening in other areas as well. And probably ranging would be a big part of that. So in that situation, you could for example, talk to Brett Griffiths, who's ex-winner back about 2009. I can give you that detail. Who now is fairly high up in the Rebel Sports area. So you could get a picture from him of what they're looking at in terms of formats and so on, just to feed into the process of what you're thinking.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you passing the details. That'd be great.
Yeah, no problem. Just send me a note, will you, to remind me that to do that. Yeah. Okay. In terms, I'll go back to what I said at the start, and that is that when you're looking at picking your topic, if you haven't done so already, look closely at what affects your area of business at the moment, whether you're in a category area, whether you're in a brand development area, you want to be customer liaison type roles and different things like that, trend analyst and so on, and try and pick a topic that fits into that area. It's a lot easier for you to be brave in an area where you know that you've got expertise in your mind. A lot of you got a lot more expertise in your head than you think you have. And this is a good opportunity to put it out there. If you're going to step outside that, then get some help. Make sure you talk to a lot of people in those areas that you're looking at. And again, we can help with that, to make sure that you don't run off and spend a whole lot of time writing an essay that missed the point. It's fine. Go ahead and do it. It's brave. Give it a shot if you want to, but let us know. Let us get you the help to make sure that you are able to put your best foot forward. Come on, must be some others out there got some questions. No. All right, let me finish off by reiterating that this old face that you're looking at here is the help desk, and I'm more than happy to give as much help as I possibly can to any of you at any time. As I said, 7 days a week is fine. I don't have a problem with doing that. We can do it as emails, we can do it as backwards and forwards, we can do it as a phone call, or we can get online and we can spend half an hour, 3/4 an hour going through the process. Whatever suits you, we're here to do that. Again, it's not about just getting a whole heap of essays in. It's about making sure that every one of you is given the best opportunity to show people what the hell is going on in the back of those talented heads of yours. And it's a bit of an eye-opener to everybody. The other thing we can say is that we know that a hell of a lot of people who put their foot forward and submit a Jo Berry essay get promotions fairly quickly. We've got a little bit of proof on that. The other thing too is if you're out in stores, it's a lot of people registering from stores this year. It's a really good opportunity for you from that distance to also to connect with people within head offices or supplier areas or other parts of the industry, so that you're getting more exposure, but you're also getting an expansion into how other people are thinking across the industry, not just what's happening up and down the aisles of a store. Very talented people out in stores. So let's see you in this essay group as well.
Keith, just to check, is it just the email that was used? Sorry, what's the best contact email?
Just inquiries at joberryaward.com.au.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it all comes to me.
Awesome.
Thanks.
You mentioned entries or enquiries, Keith?
Enquiries is better. Entries, we normally just keep that for the registrations and
Okay.
and other things, but enquiries, please.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll probably do one of these again, perhaps towards the end of January. But in the meantime, don't hesitate, for goodness sake, and get those essays going, because it's highly valuable. So I'm here anytime you need. Okay, absolutely appreciate you all coming on. I'm looking forward to a heap of essays. It's good news. Good news. Okay. Goodbye
Thank you
all.
very
See you
much.
later.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Keith.
Bye-bye.
Bye.